Now we'll start with chapter 3. Chapter 3 is modularization technique. Any idea about this? Modularization technique. What is the word modularization? Okay.
Is it about making function modules, like to make components of programs that can be called from other programs?
Yeah. So it's always not a good option to write a program in a way that we cannot reuse its components. Or let's say I'm writing a 1000 lines of code in such a way that I cannot use it again in some other program. That is never a good option, and it is not suggested to anyone. That is why we should write our code in such a way that we can reuse it at as many places as we want. So we need to do the modularization part. What is modularization? So modularization is a technique which is used to divide the application program into smaller units. It's used to divide the application program into smaller units. This helps us maintain the code, maintain the code in an easy manner, and reduce the code redundancy. So this helps us to maintain the code in an easy manner and also reduce the code redundancy. It also helps in increasing the code reusability. Code reusability is the most important thing which we see here. Modularization technique, it also helps in increasing the code reusability. So we have got types of modularization techniques in ABAP. Modularization technique in ABAP. So which is include program, function modules. Third one will be your subroutines. Include program, function module, subroutines. Fourth one is your class methods. So there are 4 types of modularization technique that we have: include program, function module, subroutines, and class methods. Now if I go back and see how we were actually creating a program. If I simply go back and I simply have to write a program, display, not this one. Classical report ABAP. Yeah, this is the program we have written in the previous session, right? You remember it, Mukul? We saw our classical interactive reports at line selection event, at user command event, and then we also saw top of page during line selection event, right?
Yes, correct.
There we saw, now this program, what is the job of this program? It is an interactive report, right? Interactive report. We are interacting with the output. So earlier, how we were writing our code? Same way, definition, declaration of code, declaration of structures, internal table, work area declaration, select option declaration, right? Then in start of selection, we were simply writing our logic. Start of selection, we were simply writing our logic part. Then we were displaying using loop statement. But none of the code is reusable. If I try to use any section of the code in any other program, it will not be possible, right? So for that purpose, we have modularization techniques so that we can modularize our code. So out of which the first one is your include program. So include program is a modularization technique. Modularization technique. Okay. Then we can create include programs with the help of ABAP editor, which is SE38. We can simply create from there. SE38, the type of include program is I. For include, the type of program is I. Okay. Include programs are non-executable code. Non-executable codes. Which cannot be executed separately. Cannot be executed separately. So what we do, we simply store the declaration part of our program, programs into the include programs, right? We simply store the declaration part of our programs into the include programs, and then we simply call them inside our program so that we can also reduce the length of our code. Okay. So the most important use of any include program, the most important use of include program is for lengthy data declaration used in different programs. So if I go back and check my previous program that I have created here, what I will find that I have a data declaration of 28 line, right? 28 line. Maybe in some other program, I might have to declare lots of structure, lots of internal tables. So instead of declaring them again and again, what we can do, we can simply create an include program, and there we can store this declaration part, and we will be easily able to call them. So how do we create them? We create them from ABAP editor. Just go to SE38. Let's name it include program. Z include program. Yeah, include program. Okay, let's name something 01. Create button. Give the title. Include program for interactive classical report. And in the type, we are going to select this time include program. Click on save. Simply assign the package and transport request. Okay. See here, this type is include. This type is include. We cannot directly execute from here. If we'll try to click on execute button, by default the master program is not an executable program. This is only there which we can reuse it in any other program. So what I will do, I will simply copy all the declaration part, and I will paste it here. I will activate it. Once it is in active, I can simply use it. So in this program, I am simply going to use that. I will remove all these things now, and I will simply call that include. So include, and paste the include name. Activate it. See, there is no error, right? No error. And now this thing has become reusable also. This thing has become reusable also. So if now I will try to execute this, my original code still working, right? It is still giving me the output. This is include program, guys. We have simply added all our declaration part into this one, and now we are simply able to use that. We are simply able to use this thing, right? Any doubt here?
No.
No, no doubt.
This is a pretty simple thing, so that we can uh, divide our program into smaller component. So if somebody else is now coming here to understand the program, he will say, okay, this one is include program, and here I can give a simple comment. All the declaration part is there. Declaration part of my program is here. I can simply give the declaration here. So if I have to go inside this, everybody will go there, and okay, so this one is like, all right, so structure declaration part, internal table work area, and variable declaration part is here. So easily everybody can understand it, right? After that, select option, and then in start of selection event, we have written some code to get the output part, which we are seeing here clearly. So same thing we can do for any other purpose also. Just we need is our declaration part. Then we have function modules. Function modules. A functional module is a reusable piece of code or small program that provides an interface for data exchange. That provides an interface for data exchange. Function module is a very different concept here. You can directly locally execute this function module from where you are building it. They also provided this system there. So functional module is a modularization technique also. Modularization technique. Function is a modularization technique. We can create our function modules from SE37 transaction code. Function module is created from SE37 transaction code. Okay, it provides an interface for data exchange. That simply means it is a reusable piece of code which we can create that, and we will simply pass certain input. Based on that input, this function module is going to give us some output. Okay, but function module always requires a container for its storage. Function module always requires a container for its storage, which is function group. So function group is the container in which all the functional modules are stored. If there is a function module, then there must be a container which will be a function group. Okay. First, we are required to create our function group. then and only then we will be able to use that. So what is a function group? A function group is a container for the function modules. It is a container for the function module. We can create our function group from ACAT, function group from ACAT transaction code, and one function group can store up to 99 function modules. One function group can store up to 99 function modules. So we can easily create our function group and then we will simply store our function module into this function group. So how to create that? We will go to Object Navigator, which is ACAT. Just go to Object Navigator, go there, ACAT. Oh, it has been logged out. Let me relog in. ACAT. Now I will simply select this function group. I will simply select here function group and I will pass a function group, something which is not there. Let's say 01. Function group 01 and I will press enter. It is giving me a pop-up that this function group does not exist. So do you want to create this object? Yes, I want to create it. I will go for yes button. I will give here a short description, function group for ABAP training. Press enter. Assign the package and transport request. Now once it has been created, I will right click on it and I will go for activate button. And now if you open its include, you are going to see two includes always. Here a top will be there. This top will be global section. This is the function group of the function pool of this function group, in which you can globally define any variables here, and all these variables and objects will be accessible to the function module that you are going to store. So any variable or anything that you are simply creating here, they will be accessible to all the function modules. Then we have this uaccess include here. So at the moment you will create a function module, automatically it will be stored here with the include name, and its name will end with uxx. Here x will replaced by 01, 02, 03 up to 99. So at most, that is why we can store at most 99 functional module in a function group. Okay. So now let's copy it and go for the creation of function module. Go for it. /OSE37 Z function module. Create. See here, it is automatically asking for function group. So without function group, we cannot create our function module. So I will paste my function group here. Not this one, I will need this thing. Function group. And in the short description, function module. Press enter, enter. See here, we are in the function module section. And if you go for the attributes tab, as usual, it contains all the generic data along with function group, its description, short description. And now if you check processing type, so we have three types of function module in ACP system: regular, normal, or default function module. Second one is remote enabled. Remote enabled function module. It is very, very important, guys. So remote enabled function modules are used. Let's say you in your company you have multiple ACP systems, both are connected to each other. So if you want to use this function module in other ACP system, so you will have to create it remote enabled module. And if both the ACP systems are remotely configured with each other, we will be able to use that. Okay, just give me a second. There is some call. Yeah, hello, am I audible?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. So this is your function group, and then you can see we have our function module. Function module have three types: normal, remote, and update. Remote function modules, we create remote function module if we want to access from some other SAP system, but there is a prerequisite. This SAP system must be configured with that SAP system, which is the job of your basis team. When they will do the configuration part automatically, then you can create any function module in this system and you will be able to access there also, or you can create that function module from there and you will be able to access here also. Then we have this update module, which is mainly created for database update related job. Like let's say if I want to use this function module for creation, updation or deletion of data for my SAP tables, then I will simply go for this update module. So three function modules are there for different purpose. Mostly you are only going to create regular function module. Then if we check, we have a import tab, we have export tab. Let's first save it. We have export tab, changing tab, tables tab, exceptions, source code. This is for logic writing. Here we are going to simply write the logic of our function module in this section. Here we'll pass the exceptions that can raise. In the tables, we will pass the internal tables through which whether we want to receive data into the function modules or we want to simply send the data from here to the outside world. Then we have a changing parameter. Changing can act as both importing and exporting. Using the changing tab, we can also import the data or we can also export the data outside of this function module. Then we have export. So something if we want to send as a output to the outside, then we can use this export parameter. And this import is used to simply receive the input from the user outside of this function module. Okay, outside of this function module. So let's say, let's take a requirement so that we can easily understand this function module. So what I will do, I will simply take a requirement for it. Let's take a requirement. First requirement, requirement 1, take input for employee ID from the user and simply display the employee data, okay, as the output. Is it clear,
Yes.
Mukul? Are you there? Mukul, are you there? Oh, I believe he is not here. Okay, no problem. So we are taking input. We will pass employee ID as the parameter there, and we are simply going to display it. So if you go and check in this importing tab, we will pass a parameter name. So let's pass a parameter name. Let's say I'm passing P employee ID, or I can simply make it I employee ID for importing I employee ID. In the typing, if you will click on F4, here type reference to is for objects, which we will see in object oriented programming. At this moment we will only use type. Now we need associated type. So this is my importing parameter employee ID, a single value which we will pass as a input, and based on that we need to send the output. So I will go to my employee table and I will check for the data element of my employee ID. I will check the data element name. This is my data element. I will simply copy it and I will simply pass here in the associated type. Simply pass here. If you want, you can make it optional. If you, since we are not marking here as optional, this will become mandatory and we will have to pass as a input whenever we are going to execute this function module. Now if I go for export button, we will give here the output part, the exporting parameter. So here I am going to pass lt data type. Now what will be the associated type here, Alan? What do you think? I have to display the employee data here. What will be the type for it?
Since it should be the internal table, but that's not. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be an internal table. So what will be the associated type here?
Mm, maybe the respective data element. No?
Can we use a data element to store an internal table?
For tables, no. That's why I'm confused. Which one to
So
put here? I
do you
don't.
remember how we were declaring our internal table?
Yes,
How we're declaring it?
with the structure and.
Yeah, we had two ways, right? The first one was using structure. So for structure, we were using type table of keyword,
Mhm.
and then we had table type. So for table type, we can directly use type keyword to declare an internal table. For
Mhm.
structure, we need to use type table of keyword. So two difference is there. But if I go and check here, can I use type table of? Is there any option to use type table of here? No, there
No.
is no option. We can only use type keyword here. So since we are only using type keyword in the associated type, what will be my type here? Table type, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Automatic table type. So I will have to create a table type. We already know how to create a table type. We have seen it clearly, right? So I will check. Yeah, I believe I have one table type here. Table type, I have created it already. See it in the structure section. I have these 4 columns, right? I'm using it here. I will simply copy this table type and I will paste. I will paste in the associated type. Press enter, right?
Mhm.
This is ready. This table type is ready. So now I can go to my source code, and there I can simply see all these things are appearing here in form of comments, importing and exporting. So I will simply write the logic here. If let's say I employee id is not empty or is not initial, then I will simply give a output. Select employee id, employee name, department manager, from my table name into table lt data. This is my lt data output parameter, lt data, which is the perfect table type of these 4 columns only, right? So
Mhm.
I will simply store here into this lt data, where employee id is equal to this importing parameter IEMP id, which we have given, IEMP id, which we have given in this import tab. Now let's check for syntax and activate it. It can be possible that, let's say, if we are passing some wrong data, so I will not receive the output here. So in that situation, what we can do, we can give here exceptions also. So let's say no or wrong input. Let's name it wrong input. And I'm simply giving here short description, no data found. Okay. So if I go and check in the source code, I will simply write here, if my LT data is not initial, I will simply raise this. So raise wrong input, wrong input, right? If I am not receiving the data, if it is not initial, I will raise the wrong input. So let's activate it, and I'm simply going to put a debugger on it, and we can, since locally execute our function module, I will simply go for the execute and checking purpose. Let's go and check it. I will pass here one value 101. and execute it. Yes, we are in debugging mode. Here at this moment, employee ID is not initial. We are getting the data. So now I will go for F6. I will double click LT data. LT data here is a standard table. So it is going to check if size of RC is not initial. Yes. If size of RC is not initial, it is raising the input. Okay. We don't need to raise it at this moment. We will change it to is initial, because if it is empty, then we should raise this input. Wrong input. Right. Now let's go and check again. 101. Execute. See, here we are getting the output, right? We are getting the output. So our function module is working perfectly fine. This is how we create our function module. We take the requirement from the user, then we decide whether importing, exporting, or changing or tables, in which parameter we need to pass that, and then accordingly we are going to use it. Is it clear?
Yes.
So this is one thing. Now if I go back and check the program that I have created, let's replace that selection logic with our function module. I will open the same program again. In this program, I have written this selection logic for select option, right? I have written this selection logic for select option. So how am I going to replace it now? How am I going to replace it? If I have to replace this thing as the function module, I will have to pass this select option as the importing, right? Then I will pass a exporting or tables parameter, which will return us internal table. So we need two things, right? We need two things. So at this situation, what will be my importing now? If I
The
have to
first
pass here select
parameter.
option, what will be the importing data?
Maybe if you go back to the code. Then you want to pass on the select options. I forgot what we want to pass.
What you have to pass?
Yes, because we have to add something here now, right?
You have to add something here, right? But the question here is, if I have to create a function module which takes select option as the input and returns us output, how will I create that? This is my question now. Earlier our requirement was to only pass a single value, so I simply added its data element, single value. But now I need select option. How am I going to do that now? How am I going to do that?
It depends what you will fetch from the user. So in this
No,
case,
not from user. I am telling that I am need input in
yeah,
form of select option, right? I need input in form
right.
of select option. So how am I going to do that? What will be the associated type at this moment? If I am writing like this, what will be the associated type? What will be the associated type?
Is it the low and high?
Yes, but low and high, how many components are there for your select option? Have you checked ever?
Here, no.
You tried and go and check it in debugging mode. You need to go there, na? So if I'm passing some value here, if I go and check, if I double click on select option, can you see it is also a standard table?
Yes.
This is working here as standard table, right? It is there working as standard table, and this thing, if you go and open it, how many components are there? It's
There's
character
four.
1, character 2, character 3, and character 3. This character 3 and character 3 belongs to our data element of employee ID, but these two things, character 1 and character 2. So we
Mhm.
need a table type of these four columns. That is how you can take input from select option. That is how you can take input. Is
Yes.
it clear? So we will
Yes.
manually create our table type there, and then we are simply going to use it. So let's go back. I will go and check. I believe I already have one. Let me go and check. Data type. Mm, yeah, table select option. Yes, I have one. See, sign option low high I have created. Its first one will be character 1. Since for sign usually takes input only two things, include and exclude, I and E. Option takes only equal to, less than for LT, greater than for GT, option or BT for between. Then in low and high, I will pass the data element of my actual value that I am going to pass. Okay. I
Mhm.
created this structure and I simply have created a table type for the same structure. So now I can simply use this table type here in my function module. I will simply paste here. Oh, it has been logged out. Reopen it. Let's reopen that. SE11, not 11, SE37. Open the function module, change. Okay, it is getting edited. Let's go and release the lock from SM12. Search. We need to release here. Yeah. Now in the importing, I am going to simply pass it type and the data element name. Sorry, the table type name of our select option. Same thing, right? I will go to now table section or exporting section. We need to give a output. We need to give a output. So we already have this data type. Sorry, this is a table type of our employee, which we can directly use for the same thing again. So either I can pass here in the exporting or in the tables tab also, anywhere. So let's say this time I'm naming it LT table type and I will paste the same data element. Okay, data is the same table type here. Now go to source
Mhm.
code and you can simply write the logic for this thing also. So let's give a logic here. The logic will be if SEMP ID is not initial, I'm going to simply define it, and if select employee ID, employee name, department, manager, from your table name into table LT. What is our output parameter this time? LT table, where employee ID in as employee ID. Okay.
Mhm.
And if this LT table is not initial, or sorry, is initial, then it simply means we are not getting the data. So I will simply raise the exception. So raise our exception that we have created wrong input, right?
Mhm.
Activate that. Let's check it locally first. uh, I have simply made this not mandatory, so in the select option I will pass the value I BT 101 to 105. Let's go and check that. In the LT table I will simply pass I will get the output. If everything is correct, go for execute. We are getting here in LT table, right? Can you see we are getting the data?
Yes.
Yes, we are getting the data.
Mhm.
So it simply means it is working. It is fine. So I can now simply call it in my program. Let's copy that and go to your program again. SE38. Go there, open the program in change mode. Open it. Okay, there is also log here. Let's release that from SM12. Search. Yeah, we have on our report. Let's release this. Open it. And I will simply remove this selection logic and instead I am going to call the function module. Now please focus it. How do we call the function module? We will go for pattern button. In the pattern, simply paste your function module and press enter. See here. All of the importing and exporting parameter will come here. Everything, right? Everything will come here. So in this as employee ID, I will pass my select option, right? And this table's data is going to return me my output. My output will be stored in LT employee, right? So I am going to pass here LT employee and comment the exceptions also, so that if there will be an exception, we will easily give a error message here. We can give here if psi sub rc not equal to 0, not equals to 0, we can give here a message. So let's say message employee data do not exist, type error. Okay, simple.
Mhm.
Activate that. Now do you remember how does this select option we see in debugging mode, how does it appears there? If you go and check, we go and check, execute it again, go and check there in debugging mode. If you go and find it in desktop 3, double click on select option. Here it is in two format, one is your structure and one is your table. So how are we passing the data in the output section? Sorry, in the function module, how we are passing it? It is expecting in form of an internal table. That is why we have given their table type, right?
Mhm.
So which one will be the exporting parameter from my program here? Shall we pass this thing or shall we pass this thing? Here in the function module, if I am passing this as exporting parameter, will it be compatible there or not? Because there I have given a table type and this thing is just a structure, right? There will be compatibility issue. This guy is expecting me in form of internal table, the table type. So that is why this particular brackets are mandatory if you are sending some data in form of select option to a function module. Is this thing clear or not? If you will try to execute, you are going to get a runtime error at this moment, because this thing you are simply passing a work area and there this is expecting in form of table type. So now if you go and check, you will get a runtime error, type conflict during a function module call. Okay.
Mhm.
So we need to pass it brackets in case of select option. If you that function module is expecting a select option, here we need to pass in form of brackets. Now we can go and check, execute it, and let's check if we are getting the data or not. No, this error message is triggering, right? Okay, let's go inside the function module and check the issue. Pass the value. We are not getting the result. Go there and check. Desktop 3. Here I will go for F6. Not F6. Come back again. I will go inside the function module. So go to statement F5. Go in the function module. Yes, we are in function module now. This is our function module. Now let's check this whether it is returning us the correct output or not. LT table. LT table is there. Yes, it is returning LT table. But here we can also see our LT table is in this format, right? It is in this format. And if I go and check this line 20, we are simply given if condition this thing, which is expecting this value, right? And this value is empty at this moment. So it is not returning us any value. That is why this raise wrong input is getting triggered, right? It is getting triggered. So we need to make a little bit change in our function module. I will go back and change it. I will go back to function module. Where is it? Yeah, this one. And we will simply pass here bracket also. Let's activate that. Now it is done. If I will go back and check my function again, execute, pass the value now. See, we are getting the output. And see, it is also interacting still, right?
Yes.
It is also interacting still. But if you will pass some wrong value, so we have given an error handling there, that error will be triggered. Employee data do not exist. Is it clear how to create a function module? What is a function module?
It's clear.
Right? Pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then we have another kind of modularization technique, subroutines. Guys, function modules are very important. Lots of things. If you go and check the word BAPIs are still are not sorry, BAPIs are nothing but implemented function module itself. If you go and check, lots of BAPIs are there. In SC37, you might have heard BAPIs, everything. See, lots of BAPIs are there. If you open it, you are going to see it is just a function module. But what kind of function module it is? This one is regular one. Okay, most of the BAPIs are remotely enabled. BAPI material, save data. Let's go and check this thing. Attributes. Yeah, see, it is remotely enabled. So BAPIs are nothing but inbuilt function module. Remotely enabled function module, right? So function module is very crucial. It provides an interface for data exchange. We can locally create it for ourselves also, and lots of function modules are given by SAP also. For BAPIs, for let's say ALV display, lots of function modules are there. This one is very crucial. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have subroutines. Subroutine is also a modularization technique, but before that, this thing we are going to discuss in object-oriented programming. We will discuss in object-oriented programming. This thing we'll discuss in object-oriented programming. So subroutines. Subroutines is also a modularization technique. Is also a modularization technique. Similar to function module. It provides a interface for data exchange. But unlike function modules, we cannot execute a subroutine. We cannot execute a subroutine outside of a program. We can see that we can build our function module from SE37. We can directly test there also, but subroutine you cannot execute outside a program. It is always a part of the program. There it provides an interface for data exchange. It takes some input and based on that it gives us some output. So there is no separate transaction code. There is no separate transaction code to create a subroutine. There is no separate transaction code to create a subroutine. Okay, a subroutine is a block of code. Subroutine is a block of code. Is a block of code introduced by form and ends with end form keyword. Is a block of code introduced by form keyword and it always ends with end form keyword. Okay, so let's just see them. Because we already know function module, it will not be that difficult. Now let's comment out this function module, and instead we are going to use a subroutine for the same to same requirement. So one more thing, a subroutine is always created at the end of the program. Because if you are writing some executable code after the subroutine, it will never be executed. SAP compiler always expects that your subroutine will be always at last, so it is written in form and end form, and we use perform keyword to call a function to call a subroutine. Perform keyword to call a subroutine. So now let's go and check that. I will simply define a subroutine. I will go below at the last of the program, and there I am going to simply define a subroutine. So I am naming form, and let's say employee details. I'm naming it employee details, employee data. Okay, I'm simply naming it employee data here. Then I will use using parameter. So using, let's say, a parameter name. So using p as employee ID. Now we need to pass here type also. So what will be the type? The same type that we have given for our function module here for select option. Let's just bring from there the same type we need. So in the import, I will bring this type, copy that, and I will pass here this select option table type. Then in the changing, I will simply pass the output type here. So let's say plt data type, and the output table type, let's go and bring from table section that we have created, copy and paste here. Okay, this is your subroutine interface and form and end form. This guy is going to take input from the user, and this one is going to return the output. Is it clear or not? Is it clear?
Mm-hmm.
So we can simply write here logic based on the input. Select employee ID, employee name, department, manager, from your table name into table this output parameter plt data, where emp id in this importing to ps emp id. Just use it. Let's check for syntax. There is no error. Activate it. I have created this, so now I will simply call it here. Here I am simply going to call it. The perform is used to call your subroutine name. So simply call it perform keyword followed by subroutine name. The name should be same, otherwise you will get a say compile time error if there is no subroutine with that name, to perform employee data, then we will pass our using. In the using, what we will do, we will pass our importing parameter. What is the importing? Select option. So the select option, the same thing we need to pass here, this thing, SEMP ID. And in the changing, I will pass my importing parameter, which is receiving the data. So LT employee. Okay. This will receive the data, and this is the data we are going to send there in our subroutine. So now you can go and check it. Let's put a debugger on 28, execute, pass some value from here, pass some value from here, text of 3, and go and check. At this moment, we are taking input select option, yes. And if you go and check, LT employee is empty, right? So now I will call this for form. I will go for F5 and I will go inside the form at this moment. This select query is going to execute. Let's execute that. It has been executed and data will come into this exporting parameter. The same thing is calling in perform also. So it will automatically be stored in LT employee. The same thing LT employee, it will be stored here. 5 records are coming. So size sub RC is equal to 0 by default. It will become 0. It will become 0 here. And this one will not trigger, this loop will trigger, and we will get our output, right? Same thing, modularization, guys, dividing our programs into separate portions. Now it's totally up to you how you want to write your code. You can manually write everything together, but you can also break it into various different parts. You can also break it into various different parts, and you will be able to reuse that. Any issue here?
No.
So this one was all about modularization.